biology in college for a bio major. Like it's prepared me like really, really well.
For me, I can't say I can't say that that's exactly my experience because I've taken a math class almost every quarter, and physics, I've taken 2 physics classes, and I would think that for the intro, like mechanics physics, I think all the physics that we did in engineering helped me a lot in that, and especially the way that Mr. Mink teaches is like you understand the formulas, and then you also understand it in a way where it's not just the numbers, but you also understand like how to manipulate equations, especially, and the way that he talks through that. So I think that has helped a lot. And so also like the application that we did, especially in engineering 1, where you don't necessarily have to understand like all the specific equations, but just the simple like day-to-day things that you can do yourself, I think helped a lot.
I think for me, being in the academy was just a guiding factor into where I am today, not in relation to like college courses or anything like that. It's just I didn't know anything about engineering whatsoever. I came into the academy, did my 4 years, and did my job shadowing, which was I specifically remember setting that up in Miss Banchero's office and going out to who I job shadowed. And I remember that whole day, and like I can pinpoint that was the day that I decided that I specifically wanted to go into civil engineering. So having that experience, which a lot of high schoolers don't have to go through, was something that really guided me.
For me specifically, the academy was more about setting up a foundation, and that foundation really set me up for success for the rest of college, in that, like what Chaz said, it gives you intuition over certain things and concepts rather than just brute force memorization. In addition to that, I have a very big emphasis on foundation, mostly because what I wanted to do my freshman year of college is now vastly different to what I want to do now. But because of that radical change, I could still say that the academy helped me one way or another to eventually get to where I am.
So it's really funny that she brought up job shadowing, because like that too like was such an important thing for me, because I was so certain that I wanted to be an engineer. And I feel like it sort of did the opposite for me. Like I sort of like went in, I thought it was all so amazing, but I was like, I don't really know if this is for me, right? And at that point, that's when I sort of like changed like my career path, but I wouldn't have had that without the academy. And that being said, I really feel like the work ethic has been the biggest thing for me. Like I don't feel like I've taken a class on like at college so far that's like really like super mirrored the academy. But what's ultimately prepared me, I feel like, is definitely the work ethic, because the academy classes definitely demand like you to push yourself, you know, and you really need to like want to push yourself. And I feel like that's really helped me in college as well.
I was probably on the same track as like what Ethan said. I obviously didn't kind of do the engineering thing, but a lot of the academy relies heavily on problem solving and teamwork and having good work ethic, because you can't not try and still do well in the academy. At least from what I remember, it wasn't the easiest. But to just kind of having that good work ethic and having to like problem solve, and where everything was based on working on a team, I use a lot of those skills.
I also want to clarify, by easiest, I meant like not that college is easy. It isn't. It's a truckload of work. But, you know, now that, you know, going into the SEA, I didn't have any of the skills I now have because of it. So now that I have those skills going into those classes, it becomes a lot easier, because I don't have to struggle learning how to study or how to work with others, because the SEA already gave me that.
Cool.
Okay, I have a question, a general question. What's been the hardest change from high school to college for each of you guys?
For me, it would be the freedom to do anything that I would want. So there's an added responsibility in college in that you are now in charge of your own schedule. You are now in charge of when you eat. You are now in charge of when to go to school. You are also now in charge of if you go to school. So just the burden of all of that as a comparison to high school has been really difficult for me my first semester. And not being prepared for that change of that burden of responsibility is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, honestly, one of the biggest things was laundry. Like, I think also because my first year, I lived on like the third floor, and there was no elevator. So I think it got so bad to one point, I literally just used my luggage to take instead of like my laundry basket, because it's just one of those things that I realized if that I put off so much, but it's like the simplest thing because you can just throw it in and take it out and everything. And so I think realizing that, kind of like Irvin said, like you're responsible for your life. There's no parents who's gonna get mad at you, except for maybe your roommates. But stuff like that, where it's in charge of your life outside of school too.
Yeah, I think that about covers it, is like being in charge of your own self. Because, you know, in high school, the worst you can do is just do your homework. And that's still like a little bit of studying, right? Like that's like, you know, it's feasible to go into a test without studying. You shouldn't do it. It's a terrible idea, but it's feasible. In college, homework is usually optional. So you don't do it. And then if you're in the quarter system, it's like 2 weeks in, it's like, first midterm is here. Are you ready? I hope you are. And, you know, you have to be on top of that. You have to, like, be in charge of setting that time to study, even if it feels like it's only doing homework, you know, just making sure you set time aside for yourself.
When you, oh, go ahead.
I almost feel like it was the opposite in my scenario, because like back in Tracy, like when I was in high school, I had my own car, like I had my own schedule, like my parents weren't home a lot, like it was easy to just do things myself. And then I moved very far for college, did not bring my car. So like for my first 2 years at Eastern, I had to learn how to rely on like other people, because I couldn't just go to the grocery store. I couldn't just like take myself to the doctor. I had to do the opposite, and I had to learn how to ask for help. I had to find friends and ask them, it's like, hey, like, can I go to the grocery store with you? Or like, hey, like, can you please take me to this doctor's appointment? Because like, especially where I was in such a new environment, and like I didn't have those things I had before at home, like my own car and like my mom and stuff like that. I was like, well, dang, like, okay, I guess I just have to like be an adult and admit that I have to ask for help on these things. And that was difficult for me, just where I'm very independent by nature. Also, the quarter system is weird, and I forgot a lot of you guys have quarters. We don't use quarters.
Lucky.
Semester game.
Semester game.
Yeah, so when you get to college, I think the biggest thing was like realizing like it's just you versus everyone else, right? Like in high school, the worst thing is that your teachers give you homework and it's a drag, right? But in college, most of the time, they don't even give you homework. Like that's optional. Coming to class, that's pretty much optional too. Like these are all your own decisions, and it's very easy to get lost in all that with all that power, especially if you didn't have that any type of power when you were in high school under your parents' roof and stuff. So a lot of times it might not happen your first semester, it might happen whenever, but people can get lost in all that. So it's really important to, you know, stay on top of that and try and remember why you're there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that pretty well covers it. Yeah, just like the pretty immediate freedom that comes with like, you know, basically having like no having like the structure of like you and like your parents and then like, you know, all the people who are like all your teachers are like, okay, yeah, like, and like you're still like fairly small classes are like, okay, yeah, like we want you to succeed, right? And then you get to college and your first class has like maybe 200 people in it. And then you realize you're probably not going to know the professor at all. and like, you know, you have no parents there, so it's really all up to you. And I think that was just sort of adjusting to that was really the biggest change for me.
There's also
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
there's also a jarring social aspect because like in high school, if you want to hang out with your friends, you can just do it during lunch or after school. But in college, it's really easy to forget to, you know, set time aside to go have fun because you can get really caught up in your work. And then you're sitting there a week later like, hey, when was the last time I went out to eat with my friends? And it can really drag on your mental health if you don't watch out for it.
Yeah.
Also, just harder to find time to like spend time with your friends too once you're more like into adulthood, because now you all have classes, you might have jobs, like you might have conflicting work or school schedules. So like some of my friends, it's just hard to see them because now, unlike high school, we don't all just have class from 8 to 3.
There are instances where, like, if I want to hang out with a certain group of friends, I have to send out a when to meet and then schedule something on Google Calendar. So, yeah. The schedule differences are very jarring, to say the least.
That applies to old friends too. Like if you want to hang out with your old friends from high school, you can't just say, oh, meet up at this time. No, you need to set up like a Google Calendar event. It's a thing. You know, I'm gonna be in Tracy at this time. When do you want to go hang out?
I text people like weeks in advance before my flight home. And I'm like, this is the block that I will be here. Make your appointment.
Another side note I have on that, at least at my school, my whole freshman year, I always heard about weeder classes and stuff. And it was this idea that like they're expecting you to kind of not make it through. Like they're gonna put your hard classes in the beginning, and all these like general like science and math classes are gonna be so tough, and so many kids and the teachers don't really care and stuff. And they're like called these weeder classes to try and like, you know, get out not the best of the bunch. And I always just like felt like when I came in as a freshman, that put such a toll on me. Like I didn't expect that. In high school, everyone there wants you to succeed and go together. And then at college, it's this weird thing where they're like, okay, if you're not the best, then, you know, you're not going to make it. And it was just like this weird mentality. Of course, that's not how it truly is, but like they just kind of portray it like that, especially when you first get there. And that's like a really hard thing to transition to.
All right, I just want to remind everyone that you can still ask questions either by unmuting yourself and talking or by typing it in chat, and we'll read it out.
I was just about to ask, what mistakes did you make as a college freshman that you would warn other incoming college freshmen about?
Please go to class. It's a big thing to go to class. In addition to that, it's also very important to set up like a routine. You don't want every single day to be different in that it messes with you mentally, and like suddenly you forget that you have a midterm in 2 weeks. So like setting up a certain block of time every single day for this specific class or all of your classes, for example, is very important to see that now that you have a routine, you can continually build up the skills required to succeed.
I don't know.
I think
I'm
there's.
thinking about like what I messed up on.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Somebody jump in there.
I'm just checking that Urban is okay.
No, because I think there's like some background noise from someone.
Yeah, we're getting some background from somebody. I don't know who.
It's
I'll admit my TV was on and my TV's mounted above my desk that I'm sitting at, but I just turned it off.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Paige.
Oh yeah.
I think for me is be honest with yourself, because I'll admit that sometimes during freshman year, I was like, oh, I can study a little later. And like I don't want it to seem like don't believe in yourself that you can be disciplined, but also have that kind of balance where you know that you're probably going to be too tired, so you should be honest with yourself, like with what you can or can't do at some times. And I like there's always that balance between optimism and I guess pessimism, or like we're being realistic. So I think this second year, I started doing ROTC at San Diego State. So I would have to like drive from UCSD to San Diego State at like 4 a.m. And so I think that kind of made me have to really be honest with myself with what I can and can't do at certain times. So I think if I would have done that earlier, I think I could have gotten more things done.
Yeah, along with that, maybe start off working on your habits your freshman year, and hopefully those will stick with you when those classes do get harder and stuff. Take advantage of freshman year in that sense. For most people, unless you have a lot of AP tests, you're going to still have a lot of general classes and maybe just some intro to engineering or intro to wherever your major is. So it's going to be pretty familiar in that sense. So try and start with those study habits. Another thing I would probably say is, for me, I wish I had gotten involved with my major's like academic society. They have these clubs and stuff, basically for like every major. And once I got to my junior, senior year, and when it's more like basically all your discipline classes, then everyone knew each other. Everyone, like, they were like friends. They helped each other with all these classes and stuff. And of course, I made some friends throughout my year, but I think being in those societies and getting into them early pays off a lot. Like, I would definitely suggest that.
Go for it, Jose. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I mean, I was just going to say like something along the lines of what someone else said earlier. Just like, I think my biggest mistake is I definitely didn't have like enough structure my very first semester. Like, I just sort of like played it by ear, like every day, and like so no 2 days were the same, and like it really sort of like threw me off like all the time. And so like I'd sort of like get home and I'd sort of sit in my dorm and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have a test tomorrow and I haven't started studying at all, right? And so like I think the earlier you're on, like you're able to like sort of like structure yourself and sort of like have like a definitive schedule that you can stick to day after day, the better off you'll be. So.
I was pretty much just going to say the same thing Jordan said. Like, please, for the love of God, go to your class. You're not going to want to. You're going to wake up at 8. You're going to see that you have a 9 a.m. And you're going to say, you know what? I cannot go and I'll be fine. You might be. You might not. Just go to class and then do the optional work. They always say it's optional. It shouldn't be. Don't make it optional for yourself. Then you're going to be sitting there in the midterm wondering where the hell this came from. It was mentioned on the homework that you never did. So go to class and do the optional work.
I think my biggest thing would just be like picking friends that have similar goals, because like with the whole like friend stuff and forgetting to study, like I had good friends, but they had different like priorities than me, and so like I would hang out with my friends because I had time, and then all of a sudden it would be like midnight and like, wait, I have homework, but they didn't care about homework, so it's not like we could like work on it together because they didn't care about doing their homework, but I cared about doing mine. So then I was staying up all night hanging out with them, still doing my homework, and then getting up to go to those 9 a.m. classes because I really wanted to have friends. That's where I had moved. Like, it was a priority to me to make friends. So I would say just like find friends that have the same priorities as you. I think would have helped me get more sleep freshman year.
There's a question in the chat for Natalia. What's a typical workday like as a transportation engineer?
Awesome. So right now I'm working from home, which is a great plus, that I feel so lucky that transportation engineers have the opportunity to continue. We just packed up our desks from the office and set them up in our houses. So we're using Zoom and doing all that stuff too, and the company's still going and stuff. So super thankful for that. But on a normal day, just come up to the office and we work on designing new highways. And so a really cool aspect of that is I'm really familiar with the Bay Area and stuff. So all these highways that we're reconstructing and building, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been sitting in traffic on that for hours before. Like, it's personal to me, you know. I'm like, okay, I'm so glad we're doing this. And these projects take years just in the designing phase. We don't do construction. I'm not out into the field. I'm not architecture, anything like that. Just solely the design aspect of it. And civil engineering and transportation in general, we work with a lot of sub companies. So this huge project that takes 5 years, we have our company working on the roadway plans, and then we have the geotechnical, which is like the ground. We have them working on their plans, and then the structural people working on their structural plans and stuff. So it's a lot of communication between all these people. Everybody kind of does their own thing, and we have to communicate to try and bring it all together. And then after that, we send it to Caltrans. And so they are the ones that check everything and make sure it's good to go. So I guess just working on designs throughout the day. I'm sitting at my desk. I don't get any field work. A couple people in our office do, but mostly uncommon. But yeah, lots of designing, and that's just like computer work. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, lots of communication, lots of emails, making sure everybody's on the same page, lots of meetings. We have a lot of project meetings, even within our company. We have so many people working together and focusing on different things. So just trying to make sure everybody's on the same page.
All right. We have another question in chat. Hold on. How much free time do you get on average each day after your classes?
I think that is entirely up to, I mean, it's kind of up to the student, I think, because really the thing about college is that you can have as little or as much free time as you want. So, yeah, I mean, especially like your freshman year, I've sort of, as I've just experienced, like you sort of, your workload isn't super heavy necessarily quite yet. So really it's like all up to you. So like there were days where like I had like maybe like 2 classes. One was like at 9 a.m., one was like at 2 p.m., right? And each one was like maybe like an hour 15 minutes. And then, you know, I could sort of do whatever I wanted the rest of the day. Typically I'd spend a couple hours studying for like, you know, a future midterm or whatever. And like, you know, just doing like various types of like homework or like optional work, as they said. And, you know, but like really like, again, it's all optional. So it's all completely up to you. And so it's sort of the beauty and the curse of college is that you sort of get to make your own schedule.
Yeah, like Ethan said, it really depends on how responsible you're being. Like if I'm being very, very responsible, I can still have like a few hours every day to just, you know, do whatever I want. But if I'm not being responsible, I have more free time that I know what to do with, you know. But even if you're being like really responsible, I'm like working, I'm still working, you know, those 10 to 20 hours a week, and I have my classes. But if I'm really on top of my stuff and I manage my time well, I can still at least have Friday and Saturday just completely to do whatever I want. Not just like sometime the entire day. It just really depends on how well you can manage your time. And I feel like, you know, my freshman year, I didn't know how to do that. But this year, you know, I've learned how to manage my time, and I can definitely have a decent chunk of free time every week to just do whatever I want, as wasteful as it might be.
Yeah, I think your free time will definitely be based on you and how you go about that. But what determines how much free time is how you look at your classes and your work if you decide to do so. You know, you can decide that I maybe won't take the max amount of classes, or maybe I want to take like as many as I can, you know, get those extra units and try as hard as I can to get on the dean's list. If that's your way to go through college, then that's great. But then somebody else might do something different where they just want to graduate hopefully 4, maybe 5 years, and then, oh, but I have to pay my way through college, so I need to get work no matter what it is. Or maybe some other people are more focused on internships. For me, the internships were a really big thing for me. So for 3 out of the 4 years, I was interning. And so I had to split my schedule between my classes, how many I would take that semester, and how many hours I could put into my internship. So kind of before you even realize how you're going to be handling your free time, those 2 aspects are going to determine how much free time you will even actually have.
Okay, cool. Ashley asked, what are your daily school routines?
It really depends from semester to semester, to tell you the truth. So, and even week to week, depending on if there's a midterm or if there's a project to do or if there's nothing at all to do. But I guess on average, I would wake up, go to class, eat, go to class, study, and then meme until I'm tired. As for like during finals week or midterms weeks, like there have been instances where I have spent the entire day in the library just studying. I have also slept in the library more times than I can count, like bringing in the sleeping bag and everything, only leaving to shower. But like, honestly, it really depends. It honestly does depend.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of kind of accurate for me. It's like you kind of, I think also your routine in college has to be flexible. Because you do have to have structure. I think it's always like a balance between everything. You have to have a structure, and I think that comes with prioritizing like what you need to get done, but also how can you adapt based on what you need to get done too. So it's like a give and take. But for me, one of the biggest things in my school routine is planning the next day, because I realized that if I didn't plan the day, I would forget about things. And I could write things down, but then having so many things to do, yeah, I kind of had to take a one step further. So right before I would go to sleep, I go on my Google Calendar and then I plan out every day, like hour by hour, because I just had to know. I had to know what I was going to do, because you always remember, oh, I should probably do this tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes around and you're like, wow, I have so much free time and I don't know why. And it's because I forgot to do something the previous day. So I think along with going to class and everything, planning the next day as much as I could was a better part of my routine that I kind of got into. And then also, admittedly, is not really sitting down to eat because for me at least, I would get lost in kind of eating. I'd take like more than an hour to eat. So for me, I would have to be like, okay, I'll get ready for class, and then I'll literally be walking while eating, because I knew that if I sat down to eat, like time would just go. So yeah, I think those are my biggest kind of aspects of my school routines.
I guess another key thing that you can do with the flexibility of college is start merging things together. Like, for example, you could be eating, but while you're eating, you could also use that as free time to like catch up on shows or like meet with friends or study. In addition to that, you could have things like study parties where you just get a bunch of your friends, try to study, play Smash for maybe a few minutes, then go back to studying. So just those types of things where you can mix and match at the same time and try to like put things together in one block is another key thing that you could do.
I did that with laundry very often, because I'm someone who, like, I can only work and focus on something for so long, and then the breaks would like start laundry, work on something, then when it had to be changed over, that was a break. I could like walk away, move my laundry, work on it for a bit. Oh, it's done again, take it out of the dryer. Like, it just gave me like little breaks, because I'm not good with the whole study party thing, so I'm just too chatty and I just don't get stuff done. And so I would just walk around my building with like my headphones on. I would go down, like move my laundry, and then go back to my room and work.
You could also have laundry parties. socialize with friends while doing laundry. 'Cause there's
Okay.
mostly
I'd start that, but I don't live in a residence hall anymore.
Oh boy.
Thanks, Corona.
Thank you, mood. Yeah, no, like everyone's been saying, you don't really have a set schedule because when a midterm rolls around, you can't just have, that day where like, oh, I usually have a couple of hours for you. No, you don't. You have to go study now because if you don't, that one midterm that is carrying your entire grade might not, go so well. But on average, like if it's not a midterm or final week, it's, wake up, go to work for 3 or 4 hours, go to classes because I usually put mine in blocks. But that's like another beauty of college is that if you like having your classes one after the other, just like, all right, bio, then calculus, then chemistry, if you want to do that, you can do that. But if you need an hour gap in between each class, you can also do that, And I feel like your schedules also change from when you're living on campus to off campus. So on campus, like, if I have a 3-hour gap, I don't care. I can just go back to my dorm. If I'm living off campus like I am this year, you best believe I'm going to hate that 3-hour gap for making me go back home and then making me come back. That isn't a problem now, soon, but it's definitely, something that has to be factored in.
Okay. The next question is your grade based solely on tests since homework is optional, or are there other things involved?
So it really depends on the class. For some classes, the grade may be 30% midterm 1, 30% midterm 2, and then 40% final, and just leave that as is, and everything else is optional. Other classes might have final projects, especially for upper division engineering classes. Instead of a final exam, you have a final project that takes up like 40 or 50% of your grade. In addition to that, there are classes that have labs that you might have to do that are mandatory. For example, organic chemistry labs, you kind of have to do that. That's not optional. So again, it really depends on the course, the professor, and like what the subject matter really is. So it's not all catch-all. It's not a catch-all that your entire grade is tests. There are going to be some exceptions, but in general, like homework is much less prioritized than it was in high school.
Yeah, pretty much.
Depends on like the program you're in though, because like I've never had a class like that, like what you're talking about with a 30% one test, like and then a midterm and a final being your only grade. I've never had a class like that. But also with my program in my university, I've never even had like a lecture style class like what Ethan brought up with 200 students. My biggest class had like 35 students in it. And so a lot of my classes, at least in my program, I know like I'm not in like a more sciencey program, but like I have a lot more projects, presentations, like participation, because we'll have a lot more like discussions and not just hard like tests. And so for a lot of my classes, homework isn't necessarily optional. Like homework is a part of your grade. It's just smaller, and there's other more important bits. Like I think the projects in my department is more important.
Yeah, I feel like usually it tends towards like STEM classes are usually more test based, whereas your arts and humanities, they have a little bit more of homework and stuff. I think it is also worth mentioning that for like the classes that have labs, if you fail the lab, you fail the class. You can get 100% on your exams, but if you don't go to lab a couple of times, you don't pass. Which reads into that: go to class, go to your labs. It's not optional. You have to.
I've also had, like what Paige said, classes where participation is a very big thing. Like you have to go to discussion and talk about the material. Otherwise, you're going to fail the class. Like it may just be like 10 or 15% of your grade, but if you have a deficient participation grade, then they will fail you automatically. So it's just really dependent on a lot of factors.
Well, that 10% could always like bring you between a grade. Like let's say you had a C, but if you would have participated, you could have had a B.
Yeah. That definitely happens a lot. Like I think my first quarter, I got like an 89.9 because there's always one little thing that you could have done, and it pays to participate.
Yeah, to add on to that is, in my experience, a lot of the classes I had first year was definitely a lot more of the professors saying, oh, do the homework, and they'll usually pick more like harder questions from the homework for some of the midterms or exams. And so then they would be like, oh, well, if you would have done the homework. And so it's kind of a motivational thing. But this year, last quarter, or no, 2 quarters ago, like fall quarter, it was last quarter. The class was, I think it was 20% one midterm, 20% the second midterm, and then 60% final. But there was a catch. If if your final grade was higher than your midterms grade, then it would just like replace your whole grade.
Clobbering.
And
So you guys
so,
have 2 midterms?
what'd you say?
You say you have 2 midterms for the same class?
Yeah, that's usually how it is. It's
Midterms, one final.
it's like week 1, week 2, and then around week 3 is like midterms, and then you have a little break, and then like week 6, week 7-ish, you have another midterm, and then you have like after week 10, then you have finals. And so yeah, so some classes it's very, very tempting because they'll do that whole thing where your final can replace your whole grade. And so the homework will be published right at the beginning of class and everything, and it's definitely up to you whether or not to do the homework, and the TAs are always motivating you to do the homework. And so having that do the homework at the beginning, like when you first get into college, where it's required, and then it's best if you bring that into your work ethic later on, even though it's not required, like everyone has been saying.
Also, for the love of all things holy, listen to your TAs. They know what they're talking about for the most part. So, and if you find you're struggling in the class, go to office hours. Like that is as close to getting test answers as you will, because the professor will sometimes just say something they didn't mean to, and I'll be like, oh, well, now I know that's on the test, and you wouldn't have known that if you didn't go to office hours. So, listen to your TAs, go to the office hours if you're struggling, and you should be fine.
Also, not speaking as a student here, but speaking as a TA, we would love for students to come to our office hours, because sometimes it's dead and we don't know what exactly to do. And other times, we would love to help you with projects, homeworks, and so on and so forth. In fact, that's our job. We get paid to do that, to help you. So please go to class, please go to discussions. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you're never going to know what these professors are going to throw at you. I've had situations of all the different types of breakdowns that you guys have been talking about. It depends. It depends on your school. It depends on which class, upper division, lower division, all this stuff. I think the best advice for that is on that first day when you get the syllabus from each class, keep that piece of paper, because when midterms come around, you're going to be like, oh man, I didn't study enough for this one. I'm pretty sure it's only 15% of my grade. And then you go back to look at the syllabus, oh, and that's a 50% midterm or something like that. It's good to know the weight of everything, and remember that, keep checking in with those throughout the semester, especially at my school. You have 6 classes, or semester schools, you have 6 classes, right? So you have all these teachers with all these different weights and all these tests and stuff, just to keep them in order, keep that separate stack with the syllabus from each topic, each class.
Okay, next question. Hold on, let me scroll up. This is a question specifically for Paige. Why did you decide to go to college out of state? Was it hard to move across the country?
I wanted to move very far because I just wanted something different. I'll also admit, I like the size of Eastern, the school that I go to. A lot of the schools, back home, I felt like it was community college or a really big school, and I didn't want a big school. UCs are also really expensive, and my family had me pay for school, and so I wanted a school that I could afford a little bit easier, and I wanted to experience a season. So I have snow days here, school just gets canceled because you can't go anywhere. My first week of my freshman year, I found out what tornado sirens sound like. That was terrifying. So it was really hard. I'll be honest, it was very hard. The sunlight's coming straight in my room. It was really hard and it was very scary. But honestly, like I would still choose to do it. I like how, thank you for closing my blinds. It was very scary, but I'm still happy that I did it because I got a new experience and I just wanted something new and different, and that's what I got. I think it was worth it.
Okay. Next question. Do your classes change each semester, or do you have year-round classes?
Classes change pretty much every semester or every
Yeah.
quarter. So
Yeah,
after,
never.
sorry.
Oh no, sorry, I totally cut you off.
Okay. But like, yeah, after every 16 weeks on semester system, you choose new classes. Or after every 10, 12 weeks for quarter system, you change new classes. And you get a completely different schedule. There are classes that are like continuations of other classes. For example, like Bio 1A and then Bio 1B. 1B you're supposed to take after 1A. So there's that kind of continuity, but you still get a different grade for each. So
Yeah, I think classes like specifically, I think like in high school it's a lot easier to know what classes you're supposed to take because they're like required. But in college, I know this is kind of going off topic of like whether the classes change, but I think a big part of what I didn't expect was enrolling in classes because there are some times where I didn't even know when my enrollment date was, and I found out the day before because someone said, "Oh, my enrollment date is today," and I said, "What?" And so I looked on, and thankfully I've never missed one, but at least I don't know if it's like this at other schools, but it's kind of competitive because everyone has like their specific enrollment date, and then it goes by credits too. So if you're like, I remember last year, even though I was a freshman, like my little group of friends were freshmen, there was one kid who came in with almost 100 units from doing AP classes, and he had a much earlier enrollment time than me. And so he had enrolled for a couple classes that maybe I couldn't have gotten into. And so I didn't expect that competition necessarily. And good thing I've always been able to get into classes, but there's definitely some aspects where one class could put you off just because of that competition and enrollment times and stuff. So
Not only the question, but I think it's with the whole like competitive aspect of getting into classes, this is also when it totally pays to be involved because at least at on my campus, there's designated populations that get to register before everyone else. So like if you're in marching band, if you're a student athlete, if you're in honors like I am, you register before everyone else, no matter like how many credits you have. So that has come in handy.
I also do want to say that this is very different for every school as well. So like, please take a look at enrollment systems for different schools. One thing that I want to note is like, at least for my university, like being part of certain organizations like does give you an earlier date, but then there are other organizations that other schools give earlier dates that we don't. Like for a big example is that like a lot of schools, marching band gets like priority registration. Our school doesn't. So it really depends from school to school, and it's really something to look into like once you get accepted or like as you're looking for new colleges.
And going off what Chas said, try to schedule an appointment with your advisor to find out what you need to graduate. Because when I got here, the system for like determining what classes you need is so confusing. You come in there and you're like, well, what class do I need to take? And you can't find information on it anywhere. So you have to find some way to know what your major requires and try to build a plan. Probably not going to succeed in that plan freshman year because you're going to get your pass time very late and everyone's going to take the classes you need. So then you start taking general education requirements for your entire first year. But try to find out what classes you need so you can work around that.
All right. Next question is, do you wish that you had done something better in high school that may have helped you in college more, like taking more honor classes?
So I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I know that for me personally, like the honors classes helped because they definitely added like a little bit more rigor that were definitely more consistent with a college class. That being said, our college classes, like, as hard as honors classes, I don't really think it's super close. I think honors classes are like kind of shy pretty heavily in comparison to like the rigor that of college classes. But that being said, like every little bit does help. So I think if you're considering taking honors classes as a means of preparing for college, I think that would be a good way of doing it. But I know for me personally, I wish I had taken like infinitely more writing classes. Like one of the biggest things in college for me was like I have written so many papers and like it is like just so different from like high school, of course. And I mean, if I could give one recommendation in this entire thing for like everyone, just pay as much attention to writing as possible. This might just be like a university specific thing for me, but like I think the more like the greater skills you have in writing, the better off you'll be for like those beginning college classes at least.
I'd say like I took a lot of honors classes, and there isn't a single one of them that didn't help. If I took a major class related to it, like AP Bio with How, like it's a really hard class. Miss How definitely does not give you any room to for comfort. She really pours it on, and she does prepare you. I breezed through my biology classes. Like what we covered in How's class, simple. It was the same exact things, But definitely what Ethan said, it's like there's a lot of writing, especially if that's your focus. Like I'm a STEM major and I still have to write like a paper a week if I'm taking any sort of writing class, Even if I'm not, I'm taking an entomology class right now and I'm having to write a paper a week, So definitely take those. It might not seem like you need it. You're like, oh, I'm a math major. What am I going to need writing for? Nope, you'll need it. You won't be aware of it, but it'll hit you and you're going to need that writing experience.
And I want to bring this up since we're like on the topic of like writing classes. A key differentiating factor between like being a good engineer and just being a regular engineer isn't necessarily the classes you take or what grade you get in the class, is how effectively you could communicate your ideas. And you can get those by practicing presentations, taking humanities courses, doing a lot of writing.
So for me, I think I would definitely encourage you guys to take more AP tests. I know that's what everybody says, right? You thought take more honors classes, but not in the sense that it prepares you. Just for me personally, when I got to college, I was like, all right, teach me everything about engineering. Like I'm ready to go. And they were like, all right, take history and English and this and that and that. And for me, I didn't want to deal with those. It was probably good because I was probably not ready for all these really intense engineering classes anyways. But I didn't feel like I really did not like history in high school. Not my thing. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to take AP history, obviously. But then I'm like, I come to college and then I have to take history here and pay for it. And it's just like, man, I wish I would have taken that AP test and, struggled a little bit through high school, but just gotten it out of the way. So now when I'm in college, I can focus on other things. Passing the AP physics test with Mr. Mink was a really big thing because when I got into college, they said this crazy physics class for freshmen, it's a weeder class, nobody passes it, all this scary stuff. And I didn't have to take it, and everybody was complaining about it. And I was just sitting back and went on to the next level of physics that we had to do. But it was like the scary class supposedly, and just getting those out of the way as much as you can. Obviously, it's not easy to fill your high school schedule with AP classes, and you want to have a life too. But personally, I wish I would have taken a couple more just to get those out of the way by the time you get to college.
I will say, disclaimer for the AP test, though, is that it will look good on your college application no matter what. Taking an AP test, you really can't go wrong with that unless you know you're not going to pass or it's going to cause you a lot of strife in your life. You know, taking an AP exam is pretty much never a terrible decision. What it might not do is give you units. You know, research what schools you want to go to, because I know here at Davis, I took a bunch of AP exams and only one of them let me skip a class. So look into it. You know, I still got credits for them, but they're empty credits. I only got to skip one class, and I took like 10 AP exams. So if you know, don't take the AP exams because you want to try to skip classes, because that's not always going to be in reality.
Yeah, going off of that, different universities have different like things for AP exams. Like for example, I took a bunch of AP exams and I skipped a bunch of classes. However, my colleagues at a different university took the same AP exams as me, but didn't get to skip any classes. So it really depends on the university, and it's something that you should definitely look forward or look up when you're applying to universities or deciding which university to choose. Although that was 2 days ago, so I think you guys are seniors.
Okay. Next question. Did any of you have a job while in college? And if so, is it hard to balance work and school?
Took 2 jobs this year. I had 20 hours a week between a job at a preschool and a job at catering, which meant I was usually working both afternoons and mornings depending on the day. And you know, it is difficult to balance. You know, you're thrown into this. You have a bunch of classes. You have to deal with work, and if you have a social life, that's also going to figure into it. So it is hard to balance in the beginning. But once you find your rhythm, I honestly have more free time with 2 jobs this year than I did last year with no job, because it forced me to manage my time. Now that isn't going to apply for everyone, but it is possible to have, you know, a good year while working a lot of hours. I also think it's worth mentioning you're only allowed to work 20 hours, at least legally. So you're not going to be working 40 hours and going to college, unfortunately.
Oh, I definitely am right now. Oops.
Whoops. I mean, I think it's if you're working at the university, they don't let it because they don't want to pay you vacation hours. If you're working outside of the university, they can't check. So
I think it does also help though to have jobs that are at least somewhat relevant. Like I spent this school year and last school year as an RA on campus, and it's relevant enough to where my university lets it count as my co-op. So like for me, where being a psych major, I thought it was helpful. Being an RA was also a lot of work, but I did enjoy it. I'll miss not doing it next year.
I also worked some odd jobs in college, and for me, at least specifically, it really depends on the job as well. Like some university jobs that I've taken, they let you choose your hours, which is really good for a student. So if you have the opportunity of doing that, then that's cool too. There was another semester where I was a full-time student and also a software engineer for a startup, and that was my worst semester like ever in terms of like grade-wise, mental health-wise. So it really depends on like you to choose a job that you will love and that you could actually balance. Conversely, because of that semester, I took a semester off this year to also work again on a startup, and it's basically between picking and choosing what you want to prioritize during the semester that'll help you with how you want to balance school and work.
also,
Yeah.
Go for it.
So of course it's going to be difficult, right? You know, compared to someone who doesn't have to worry about a job or anything like that. But I think it's important to analyze what you're going to put yourself into and why you need to, or if you do, or if you don't. You know, a lot of people, like I said, they are financially independent. So they don't really have a choice. Like if you ask them, is it hard? It doesn't matter. You know, I need to get through school and I need to get a paycheck. And sometimes it means taking less classes. Sometimes it means less social life, less sleep, all this stuff. I had a job at Panda Express my freshman year on campus. That's like what I had to do. And then for me, I mean, not that I was so financially at risk, but I just needed that extra cash. Not too big of a deal. But then for me, I decided that I was really going to focus on interning. So as soon as I got to college, I was like, somebody hire me. And obviously nobody wanted to hire me. I didn't even know anything. I remember showing up at a career fair as a freshman, and the little paper that you sign, you put your name and your email, and you mark if you're a junior or a senior. And I was there as a freshman typing in freshman, and they were like, what are you doing here? You know, I was just so eager that I was like, somebody hire me. So no matter how hard you try, you just got to see what happens. I ended up not getting an internship my first year, but I went back and got one as a sophomore, and then had 3 throughout the rest of my college. But I decided that, you know, this is the amount of classes I'm going to do, so I can have time to do my internships, because for me personally, I really valued that, getting that experience. So I think you need to figure out how you need to play this whole thing. Everybody is so different. Every situation is different. It seems like this panel is really diverse too, where we all have gone through different things. So yeah, just at least know what you're getting into before you just kind of go for it.
I think just to like tack on to that topic is my sophomore year, this past year, I was really like, I really wanted a job or an internship or something, but I was still technically undeclared, or either undeclared or I had to enroll in in a major that I didn't really want to be in. It was just they wouldn't let me enroll in classes unless I had a major. So I didn't think it was ideal coming into an internship or trying to do an internship when there were a lot of people around me who were a lot more qualified. And so I looked into ROTC. And so this last year I started doing Air Force ROTC, and it's not a job, but when I added up all the hours that I had to drive to San Diego State and then drive back, it was like around 15 hours per week. And so it was the balance between having to do that, and there's like a lot of other things that kind of influenced how much time I put into it outside of school, like ironing my uniform or like memorizing like the Airman's Creed and stuff like that. It was a lot of extra work that I didn't anticipate. So when Natalia said like, know how much time you're gonna put into whatever you want to do on top of school, it's definitely ideal to know how much is going to be how much of your time will be taken out. And so right now I'm kind of investing in doing ROTC, because if I get through the whole program, then I'll kind of have like it's kind of job security. So I know it won't be like specifically as a job. Hopefully it's a job in the Air Force if everything goes well. And so that's kind of what I'm leaning on right now, just because I knew that right now I'm not really where I want to be.
Okay. I'm going to go to these questions since we're already on the topic of jobs. So if you want to be a TA, who would you go through to get the job?
It really depends from university to university. How I went about getting a TA position is like, so first, doing really well in the class is also a big thing. But I helped out at my professor's lab and stuff, and then demonstrated knowledge until eventually he asked if I wanted to also teach the class. So that's how I do it. Some other universities also have like an application for TA. Like I'm sure that a bunch of UCs in the statistics, CS, and like econ departments, you can like apply to be a TA and go through from there. For the more humanity-centered courses, it's definitely with the relationship with your professor, as well as like the work you put in and ability to like do extra stuff on the side on top of your classes. So again, I'm sorry that I sound like a broken record, but it really depends on the university. It really depends on the course. It really depends on the teacher.
So not only for TAs, but any type of a university job within your department, I would say try and get into contact with some sort of advisor. They'll have like civil engineering advisors. They have like 3 or 4 spread out through all the students. And it's usually just someone that you go see when you need to turn in papers for registration for classes. That's how it works at my school. And so you don't really have that great of a, like, you don't really know this person that well. But going in to create a relationship with that person, or as a freshman or sophomore, looking up teachers, professors of the upper division engineering classes, they're the ones that have like all the connections and everything. And they're the ones that might do research on the side and stuff. So maybe one that teaches a class, even if you haven't, preferably if you haven't even had it yet, just schedule something during their office hours and go talk to them. For me, I think it was my junior year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get a different job. And so this guy who I didn't even know, just an advisor for civil engineering, I made an appointment with him and said, I need help with my resume. So I went over to him and he just marked up my entire resume, like covered in red pen. And then at the end, he was like, do you just want a job? I'll hire you. And I was like, what? And so I started working for him on campus, and he is a researcher. And so that was a really cool gig. It wasn't exactly a TA, but I would just do whatever he needed to do, any like errands for him and things like that. We were like hosting these like classes and stuff, but I was just like his little apprentice, you know? So those connections are really good. And just a side note to throw this in really quick, when I was going to graduate and I was telling him which companies I was applying to, one that I was applying to, he was like, oh, I know the CEO. He's like one of my good friends. And then eventually he referred me for the job, and that's where I'm working now. And especially at my school, like I saw that a lot, where the professors there and the advisors there, they're in Bay Area engineering. They're in that industry already. They know a lot of people there. So making those connections, like way more than just being a TA. Like I really, really recommend talking to them, seeing what opportunities they have, just being on their good side. They're a really good resource to have.
And just piggybacking off of that, like networking is like such a big thing in college. Like you wouldn't think like just knowing people would be like beneficial to you in high school, but like what Natalia said, a lot of like the people that I know, and me specifically even, have gotten jobs just through like knowing people and being at the right place at the right time and acting when it was necessary. So a lot of it may be luck, but another large portion of it is just knowing the right people.
Okay, the next question is, how was your internship experience, if you had any?
I was lucky enough to get a small, very small internship with a teacher my freshman year, and it was very much so laid back. I didn't really get to do any work, but I think it's worth noting that, like Irvin's been saying time and time again, it varies. And I know it feels wishy-washy to say that, but you can't. It's just, Irvin probably had an internship where he was working 24/7 and had no rest. I had an internship where I barely had to do any work at all. You know, it's so variable, and I can't just tell you, oh no, it's fine, take an internship. No, you have to look into it. Do I regret taking that internship? No, it was really good experience. I got an amazing referral from an amazing teacher, and I got to see that, you know, what kind of career I wanted was the kind of career I wanted, you know? So I feel like an internship can help, but I don't think it's as simple as just telling you, yeah, no, an internship's fine, because there's going to be internships that aren't.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. The next question is, do you recommend getting a job while in college?
I'm sorry to say this, but again, it really depends.
It depends.
How you want to accomplish it, what your career goals are, what your major is, what your university is. It really, really depends. And I'm so sorry for saying this over and over and over again. But like, I guess the one thing that I can say is like, it is very scary to be uncertain in this time about like what college would be, how everything can change in like the next 2 years. But like once you get to college, I just have a feeling that you will know what you would want to do. You will know what you want to accomplish. You will know what you want to pursue in the future. And I feel like that's the most important thing in college, is to be able to like see something that you want, say, I want that, and then find the means to do it yourself and then go after it.
I mean, I worked this year, and I do not regret it. Like Irvin said, it really depends. All I can tell you is, like, other than what he just said, because that's really, really true. It's just like tell you my own experience is that I enjoyed having my job. I had financial security. I could make terrible financial decisions with horrible repercussions. I could afford to make a $300 mistake, and that was nice. But I had coworkers that I saw them working, wanting to die, just telling me I want to quit, but I can't because, I couldn't quit either. So that's also a factor you have to take in, is that sometimes it's not going to be a choice like, oh, should I take a job? No, I have to take a job. Otherwise, I'm going to be homeless, which is, a terrible thing. But sometimes you just don't have the choice. But if you have the choice, look within yourself. Don't just go recklessly like, oh, yeah, I want a job, because it might not work for you. It really depends on who you are, and you will know once you get to college.
Okay. The next question is, what clubs and extracurriculars are available?
Everything you could ever imagine.
Pretty much.
Actually wild.
And if it doesn't exist, you could easily make it exist.
Yeah.
I have a friend making a what's it called? The dancing lion. I feel terrible saying that. There's an archery club, there's a LARPing club, there's a Smash club. There's everything you could ever imagine. Archery, for crying out loud.
Oh, my university has a competitive Quidditch team. So like
we have that too.
Yeah.
It's
Same
weird.
here. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like this last semester, I was involved in intramural ultimate frisbee, and then on the other side, I was part of this club where you get to be a coach for, what is it? You get to be a sports coach for pretty young kids, right? And like, there's just so much variability. It's really just all up to you. And if you want to make a club, you will definitely be able to make one.
And whenever you're in doubt to see if it exists, I'm pretty sure you could just go to like your university website, and they'll have like a giant list of all the clubs you can join, since they have to be part of like, you have to register your club. So, and usually these lists are like hundreds of pages long, and you'd be surprised just what you can find.
And also, it sounds silly, but every university has a subreddit that you can check out.
Yeah.
I know that like the UCSD subreddit, Chaz, that theirs is just full of memes.
Same thing with r/Berkeley. It's just full of
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah, my freshman year, I got into, it's kind of weird because the clubs is like a triad. So I started, I was a part of the media committee for a dance competition, and I thought it was a talent show, and it ended up being like this whole big production, and it was in downtown, and I was taking pictures and everything, and I didn't realize how big of a thing it was. But it was one of those things where it kind of relieved school a little bit. So definitely, especially your first year, while you're doing your little structuring and prioritizing and getting your routines down, definitely look into something that could give you a little break. Not completely like throw you off everything, but definitely recommend something to ease your mind a little bit.
I also do recommend this. There are clubs for like your major and like professional clubs that you can join, which are really cool to like advance your career professional wise and make like good connections. But also I really encourage you to like join a club that isn't just 100% professional, that's like 100% fun and like social and like something that will make you happy rather than will like give you a professional edge, since those clubs are usually like way more laid back. The people are usually much more like sincere and not fake. So yeah.
Okay. Another question is, how long did it take for you guys to settle into the college life?
That's a funny question because I never did.
Yeah,
So
it doesn't feel like it.
like every single semester, every single quarter has its own like challenges. You don't really get used to like the classes, especially if they get harder and harder as you take more and more advanced classes. I do want to say that though you don't necessarily get to settle in college, you do get more comfortable with not being settled, which is a completely different feeling than like chilling around waiting for the next thing to happen that you know will happen, rather than being okay with the unknown. So I think rather than taking like for us to get settled, it's rather for us to get acquainted with the unknown.
Yeah, it sounds really terrifying to say. It's like, no, you never really settle into it, but it's you just don't. It's like, where am I living next year? Who knows? It's a mystery. You know, you don't get used to it. It's a constant surprise. Am I going to be employed next year? Who knows? Especially with Corona, it's scary at first, but it loses its edge after a while, which I guess you could take to mean settling into the college life.
I will admit it took me at least a whole quarter to know exactly like where everything was on campus. Like I had to use Google Maps for at least a quarter just to get familiar with everything, and also at least a quarter to know how the shuttle system works, because I definitely took the wrong shuttle a couple times and ended up somewhere like a 30-minute walk across campus, and it's kind of scary, but so I think it's obviously it's a little different for everyone, but the environmental aspect of like being in San Diego and not knowing anyone and everything, the campus aspect about a quarter, but I would think settling into the entire college experience as a whole, I think after the first year it got easier and a little bit more comfortable, but also like Irvin said, it's being open to the challenges and open to new things that will be thrown at you.
Also, funny story. So my freshman year, I got lost in like my department building, and I have walked into like discussions or lectures that I am not supposed to be in. And fast forward to now, I still do that. So yeah, just to show the other edge of the sword, I guess.
Yeah, I've actually almost gone, like, accidentally taken the wrong bus to the next city over like 3 or 4 different times. I actually did do it once. I ended up in an entirely different city than Davis, just taking the bus. And, you know, it takes a while to get used to it. I still use Google Maps to find my classes.
I just wish Google Maps worked inside buildings that have multiple floors.
That's actually a really fair point too.
That would be a big brain move to like make. But anyways, besides the point.
Okay, next question is specifically for Natalia. How well did your college experience prepare you for life in the workforce?
Very well. Definitely, like we're saying, everybody, you know, their situation's different, their job, their major, all these things. But without a doubt, I can say my internship experience is what helped me so much. I don't know, personally in the industry, you have a college degree and you have a 3.0 versus a 3.5 or something like that. It doesn't make so much of a difference. You know, they really, when you come into the interview, they want to see how you react. It's how are you going to react with the rest of the group. It's what do you know already. Everyone has taken the same classes. Some have gotten A's, B's, C's, whatever. It's at least in my experience, it's what you do after that. What can really set you apart. And at least for my company, I went back and did a career fair at SJSU looking to hire new students to come to an internship at our company. And when they were telling me what to look for, it was like, talk to this person and see if they would fit in our team. Like, it was just a bunch of college students I was talking to all day. And, you know, those are the things that stood out to me, like how well they can talk to us. Like, my company especially, we hire a lot of interns and stuff, and so we're a little bit younger, and so finding someone with good people skills, finding someone with those experiences that set them out like different than everyone else. Everyone came up to me with the same thing, that we finished school, we're going to graduate this semester, we finished these classes, but I want to see something else. Like, what is it? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like an internship. It's whatever you have that you do in your free time. I know a lot of like computer majors and stuff, they do a lot of personal projects all on their own, you know, like things like that. I think it's really important to set yourself apart from everyone else who's just focusing on school.
Okay. The next question is it easy to change your major?
Oh boy, we're about to see it again. It really depends on your university, your college, and what majors you're trying to transfer into. Yeah, it really does depend. I'm sorry.
I think for a lot of universities, like if the majors are at least like somewhat related, it's not too hard. But if you're trying to go from like opposite sides of the spectrum, it can be more difficult.
Also, to give you more grounding to that question, just for my university specifically, if you want to switch your major, you definitely can do that within certain colleges. Like, it's easy to switch between, let's say, math to CS or CS to statistics and so on and so forth. Or even like CS to sociology or sociology to CS, given that you meet certain GPA requirements. For example, if you want to switch into this major or even declare this major, you need to have a certain GPA cutoff / threshold. You need to take certain classes and get certain grades within those classes. Also, and this may not be true for all universities or even all majors for that matter, but it is certainly something to look into if you're trying to change your major. For example, is there certain classes I need to take? Is there a grade I need to have, and is there a GPA I need to maintain? Those are usually the things that you need to change your major. And they can be easy depending on the person, or really hard and difficult. And again, it depends.
Yeah, do I have a story for you? So, I mentioned this before, but I got into UCSD undeclared, but I had also got into SDSU for aerospace engineering. And if you're me and you're a freshman and you finally look at all of the things you have to do to even apply to transfer, because context, all the STEM majors at UCSD are capped or impacted. So if you want to switch into it, if you're not already within the department, you not only have to like take in certain screening courses, but then you also have to apply. And even if you pass all those classes, and they say, it specifically says on the website that GPA of 3.5 is considered competitive. So it's not even, they don't really have like a cutoff. And when you go to advisors and talk to them about it, they'll say, oh, well, it depends on how many people drop out of the major and how we have slots for. And so they're very vague. So there wasn't a lot that was in my hands. And so freshman year, after I completed screening courses, then I applied for aerospace. I didn't get in, but that's okay, honestly, because I started looking a little bit more, because I was very focused on aerospace, but then I started looking at other engineering majors, and then I saw electrical engineering, and it was like pretty interesting. And so then I had to go and take I think 3 more screening courses. And so here I am, second year, taking more screening courses, which once again, they said, oh, they have like a competitive GPA. But then when I talked to the advisor, she had said, well, you do want to get good grades in those classes because they're fundamental, But at the same time, she kind of like looked to me like, she was like, but not a lot of people are trying to transfer into electrical engineering. And she was very true about that. Not a lot of people want to do electrical engineering. And I looked at the numbers, and like out of 30-something thousand students, out of like the graduating class last year, there's only like 150 students who graduated from electrical engineering. So a lot of people got accepted for it, but then also transferred out. And so that kind of left room for people like me who wanted to transfer in. And so, yeah, it does depend, but also be very wary of what you have to do to transfer, because it was a long, long, hard road for me to continue taking more screening courses that even if I did get a good grade in, there was no guarantee at all. And so for most of my college experience, if not all of my college experience so far, it was taking a whole bunch of classes where things were completely out of my hands and I didn't really know what I was going to do if I didn't get into something. So.
And also, it might take you a while, but I've seen like an English major change to microbiology. You know, if you can do it, if you set your mind to it, you can do it, even if it's just completely out of left field. It's just a question of how hard is it. It can be really hard, but it's possible.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. This has been great, but I don't want to drag this on any longer. I appreciate all of you guys taking your time to come and talk to us and answer questions. And it's just been good to see you all again, even if it is only virtually. Any closing comments anybody want to make?
Don't buy textbooks. There's ways to get them.
Don't buy
that trap.
textbooks are a scam.
They are.
They are a scam. There are websites. I legally cannot tell you the websites, but there are websites.
There are. You know, go on Reddit. You'll find a ton. Just Google it. You'll find it. You know, I haven't had to buy a single textbook. Lab manuals, you know, you do have to buy those. But textbooks, save your money.
Don't worry too much. This is a really fun time. You guys should all be really excited.
I just want to say if anybody has any questions or something like that, feel free to reach out to me or anything like that.
Yeah, seconded.
Oh, yeah, feel free to reach out to us. I'm sure we would love to help.
Yeah, Philip probably has all the information, so.
Yeah, your boy Philip, he knows the deets.
He's the man.
Yes, I do.
Posted on Instagram by both Philip and Simani. So apparently it's really easy.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you all. I wish you, are you guys all still studying? You still in classes virtually?
This is my last week.
Yeah.
I just finished like a couple of weeks ago, but.
Week 5.
Week 5, halfway.
Wow.
Almost there.
Well, good luck in your studies. We're going to be doing, just so you know, if we ever get let out of our homes, we're going to do an Academy Awards night, but it will not be this month. But you guys would be welcome to come by if you want to.
Oh, heck yeah.
Paige, it might be hard for you to do it,
I'll
but
be there in spirit.
yeah. All right. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming.
Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Good luck,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great seeing you guys.
Great seeing you, Mr. Mink. Bye.
Nice seeing you.
Take care.